Support for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
Tumblr,
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com,
and Gmail.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com.
And from listeners like you. Thank you.
And my free time.
Got to get that in there. See, I had all of these great ideas throughout the week of how to open the episode, but, I get in front of the microphone and then they all just kind of evaporate. So, really leaning on you here.
Oh, no. March Madness is here, everybody. Did you fill out your bracket? All right, we're going to have our own little March Madness right now. Just picture this in your mind's eye. This is going to make great radio. Okay, so on one end, we have Buster versus Arthur. That's right, top seeds right there. Okay, The Brain versus Mr. Rapper. And then near the bottom, we have Binky against Francine. There we go. That's one side of the bracket. The other side, Muffy Prunella. Fern versus
Sue Ellen?
Sue Ellen. Perfect. Now you're speaking my language. And then we need a final two. DW Pal. I know.
DW Pal.
That's the top seeds. That's the top seeds.
That's loaded. Are you kidding me?
Number 1 and number 2.
Man.
All right. I'm not going to make you go through all that again because, to be honest, I've already forgotten it, and we can pick the semifinals later. But you listening at home, you make that bracket, you make your picks, and we'll see who wins.
Yeah.
The Arthur March Madness.
Sounds good to me. This is Will Young, along with the hoop dreamer himself, Lucas Mancini.
I take that as a huge compliment. Hoop Dreams is a fantastic film.
And we are here for Elwood City Limits, the episodic Arthur podcast. Thanks again for joining us. We have got we're going deep on these 2 episodes, or rather this one episode with 2 parts that we've got this week. But of course, wanted to start us off this week with some listener feedback, as we like to do. So I wanted to start it off. I wanted to start off a bit lighter with our Tumblr asks over at elwoodcitylimits.tumblr.com. We got a couple of quick hits here. The first one we just got yesterday, and this one I thought was very interesting. Not so much a question, but Roa Bear wrote us and said, "Y'all were talking about the music Muffy was blasting in Poor Muffy. It sounded like a whole mix of genres, but the first thing I thought of when I heard it was the 80s song Owner of a Lonely Heart by Yes. The guitar solo is almost spot on." Now, I listened to Owner of a Lonely Heart, and they're absolutely right.
No way.
It sounds near perfect. So for listeners, okay, so here is Muffy's music. And here's the guitar solo specifically of Owner of a Lonely Heart. Now, obviously, it doesn't work for us because I can't really play it for you, but it sounds real close.
I'm picturing like a Hotline Bling Pina Colada song-esque mashup in my mind's eye, and I can see how they could fit together.
And I think that's a great observation. We also got an actual question. This one doesn't go too deep, from Chill. Man, these Tumblr names are hard to figure out how to pronounce.
Philadelphia?
Chillelverum. They asked, which character is the most likely to vape? Okay, so here's what I want us to do. On the count of 3, we're going to name the character we think.
Okay.
Because I've got somebody in mind.
Give me a second. Give me like 1 second.
Okay,
here.
so the character most likely to vape. I've had all week to think about this. I know
you're putting me on the spot.
Kind of putting you on the spot a little bit here, but I feel like...
Okay.
Okay, so you
got it.
You got it? Okay, so you don't have to yell it out, but we'll just say it together. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Brain.
Rattles.
Okay. Oh.
See, at first I was thinking brain,
Okay.
but I don't know.
I was thinking brain and Buster as a second.
I feel
But that's
like
more college Buster.
College Buster's more like he's just doing Adderall all the time, watching InfoWars.
Oh, my Lord.
Brain, I could see he's like making his own custom rig.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I got to unlock the ohms so I can blow. But here's the thing. I don't think Brain would be so into blowing mad clouds. You know
No.
who would be all about that cloud life, though? That cotton life? Rattles.
I think that's a good pick. I like Rattles. I did not consider him, but yeah, that sounds exactly like the person who would blow mad clouds.
He would also be into all the nonsense vape terminology. He could
Yeah.
add that to gleeking. He could be talking about ohms and all that stuff.
Holmes, right. All right, so Rattles, probably the most likely character to vape. And now we move on to our emails. We got a couple of them this week over at elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. And we're going to start off this week with an email from Hunter. Hey, Lucas and Will, my name's Hunter, but I also go by Maddox or Bradley Boy, like Brad Maddox. Ooh, topical.
I know. Oh, hey, you know what? Never mind.
And I have an anime recommendation for Lucas.
Uh-oh.
It's called Marginal Number 4. It's about 4 high school boys who are in an idol group trying to live a normal life because, as one of the main characters puts it, at the end of the day, they're still ordinary high school students. Marginal Number 4, there you go.
I've never heard of it.
Me neither. I mean, I don't know much about anime. I've been thinking about getting into Yuri on Ice.
It's very good. Hey, if you
I-
need me to hook you up with a Crunchyroll subscription on the DL, let me know after the show.
Thank you. Use promo code. This
Oh,
promo
oh.
code doesn't exist. Yeah. No, but yeah, my another one of my friends has recommended it highly. And finally, One Punch Man is on Netflix. So I'm going to get
also
it. Want to
on
get it sent too.
Crunchyroll, I think so.
I also love how you guys sprinkle in wrestling references with your Arthur reviews, being a wrestling fan myself. I also have a question for you guys. How long do you think WCW would have lasted if it won the Monday Night War? Ooh, okay, so that's getting into a little bit heavy on the wrestling. So
We could have a whole podcast about this, but I'll quickly say, as someone who's recently listened to the audiobook version of Death of WCW,
Yeah.
I think it was doomed to fail given the people that were in charge, no matter what happened, especially once it became non-profitable. Turner Broadcasting was going to get rid of it no matter what.
it would have required several miracles for it to turn around, and it would have required the WWF to really crap the bed and to really stink it up in order for them to even be in a position to win. And even then it's a tall order.
If you look into the corporate structure of the way that company was near the end, there was nowhere for it to go but away.
Yeah, really.
So
It's hard to picture, and that's a good one. It's a good one to think on. P.S. He says NWO for life, or excuse me, NWO for life.
too sweet.
There you go. And we also have one from Josias, who wrote us
Josias?
a week or two ago. I'll go on. Hi, this is Josias again. I listen to all the episodes now and still feel as positive about the show as I did in my previous email. Will, feel free to pronounce my name in whatever way you feel most comfortable saying.
Did I try and correct you last time?
No, you didn't try to correct me. We just weren't sure.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I started wondering if the podcast could ever possibly catch up to where Arthur is now. For this, I decided to do some math. Sorry, Lucas. There are currently 229 aired episodes of Arthur. Let's assume that there are 4 episodes of Elwood City Limits each month, which obviously isn't true, but let's just say, well, yeah, sometimes life does get in the way. At this rate, by the end of the year, you will have covered 63 episodes, leaving 166. At 4 episodes per month, all 166 would be covered in a little more than 3.5 years. Of course, in these 3 years, it could be assumed that 3 seasons have already been aired, adding an extra 30 or so episodes. This would take about 8 extra months to cover. So finally, it would take about 4.5 years for the podcast to be concurrent with the series. Realistically, this would also probably end up being 5 to 6 years. Hey, Lucas, what are you doing for the next 5 to 6 years?
Not much.
Sorry if I made you guys feel some existential dread with this. I just thought it would be interesting. Love the podcast. Also, I find it funny that you guys are giant Bomb fans because Will's voice occasionally reminds me of Ryan Davis.
Wow, what a huge compliment.
And the show definitely has that Bombcast vibe. Both of those huge compliments. Thank you so much. I don't think I could ever quite touch the humor that Mr. Ryan Davis was capable of.
What an honor to bestow upon us. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I am a really, really huge fan, so that means a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a more recent fan, but very, very big as well. And thank you, Josias. That was actually very interesting to read. Whether or not we'll get there to the end, to the very end, is anybody's guess. But as long as we're having fun, we'll keep it going, and our circumstances will definitely change in the next few years as, our lives take shape, but hopefully we can still come back to this, even if we lose a bit of time here and there.
I at least want to get to the episode where Buster starts a podcast, just to start some podcast inception.
We kind of have to, even if we have to jump forward in time. Okay, so we've got our pair of episodes today. Let's start it off with DW's Blankie. So it starts off with Arthur talk to the camera once again about how DW takes her blankies everywhere. Her blankie everywhere. She takes it to preschool. She takes it in the bathtub. There was one other place that she takes it normally. Anyway, she carries it around everywhere, and it never gets washed. And which leads Arthur to say that DW has harangued him into looking around for the blankie on his Saturday so that they can try and find it. Now, this blankie kind of comes a little bit out of nowhere.
So, and I hate to put her on blast, but luckily she doesn't listen to the show, so it's all good in the hood.
Okay.
My adult girlfriend still
has a blankie?
Has multiple blankies, too.
Whoa!
That she continues to sleep with to this day. And they also very infrequent have not been washed in many years because they are so ratty now. If they were to be washed, they would disintegrate. Right. The threads are actually coming apart. It's not like a thing she needs per se. It's just they're still there, so why not keep them on the bed? So it's not like this weird complex or anything that I'm making it sound worse than it is. But she does have blankies that she refers to as
blankies.
Her blankies. Yes.
Well, let me stick up for
She does not carry them all around as well. They do not leave the bedroom.
Right. Let me stick up for your girlfriend a little bit because I actually have my own blankie as well. Now
all sorts of revelations.
I don't.
Here.
Now I don't regularly go to bed with it, but it's my blankie and my 2 stuffed bears that I've had since childhood. And every once in a while, when I'm feeling very lonely, I'm feeling very down, I just need something. They're right there for me. They always have been. And I'm a big believer in the power of teddy bears and stuffed animals. It sounds kind of weird to say as a, large adult bearded man, but every once in a while it genuinely does help a lot, and they mean a lot to me, but they are also so old. The older one that I've had since I was a baby is quite worn away, but I like to say well loved. Blue Ted and Pink Ted.
Isn't that funny? So, okay, that's kind of crazy because my next thing I was going to say is, so both of them are named Ted, right?
Yes.
All my childhood stuffed bears, they're all brown, but they're all different sizes. There's a big one, 2 medium ones, one has a ribbon, but they look exactly the same, and a very small one. And because my dad named them, they're all named after former Montreal Canadian Guy Lafleur. So they're Big Guy, Middle Guy, Little Guy, and Double Guy.
Double Guy?
Double Guy is the middle one without the ribbon.
I'm just laughing at how that sounds. Big Guy, Little Guy, Middle Guy, and Double Guy.
And small Guy? I don't think it was mini Guy. I think
it's like you're shopping. It's like you're shopping for sizes at a martial arts store. Okay, do I want Big Guy, Small Guy, or Double Guy?
Yeah.
Put on some weight. Maybe I want that Double Guy. Well, we've all had our childhood stuffed animals, and so definitely able to relate to this. I've still got the blanket. It was definitely used as a baby. So we begin the episode with DW looking high and low for her blankie. Can't find it. She collides into Arthur while she's looking for it, and Arthur's on the phone with Buster. And Arthur's very excited. He's getting ready to go out because Buster rented all the Renegade Joe movies.
This got me so excited. My mind was ablaze with what Renegade Joe could be. I was thinking about it this whole episode.
Now, my assumption has always been it's Schmindiana Schmones. It's Indiana Jones just to take off.
Interesting. I was thinking more of a Schmambo kind of movie.
Schmambo? Okay.
Yeah, like a Rabbit Rambo. That's what I think when I think of Renegade Joe, like the singular action star. I feel like Renegade Joe has to have a red bandana.
Or given the naming convention, it could be Schmad Schmacks.
Ooh, Buster does describe the plot of one of the Renegade Joe movies at the end of this.
But it's not like any of them. Like we'll get to it a bit later, but it's like it's neither of them. It's like
it's more MacGruber than anything else.
Yeah, really. But Arthur's very excited because he rented all the Renegade Joe movies and he's on his way. But then DW stops him before he gets out of the house because she needs help looking for her Blankie. And we get the very telling line here from Arthur that he may come to later regret. He says, "Well, we know it's not in the washing machine."
Hilarious.
Are you so sure, my friend?
Well, before we know that that's actually telegraphing something near the end of the story, I just thought that was a funny line in the moment, like, oh, Arthur's got to get his dig in.
Well, because...
Oh, it's so dirty.
It's so dirty.
I actually laughed. I thought it was clever.
All right. And, Arthur is trying to get out of this as much as possible. Like, Mom's at work and won't come home. And then she starts harassing Pal, who may have stolen it. But Arthur says Pal's got better taste than that.
Again, with the burns. Arthur's on fire this episode.
So he's about to go out the door, and then DW blackmails him into helping her because she threatens to let it slip that Arthur still needs his teddy bear Stanley in order to sleep at night. So he does agree to help her look. So basically what they end up doing is retracing the steps taken the previous day of where DW and Mom went on their day out. So they start off at the Tibble twins' place, which of course is prime suspect number one of stealing something would be the Tibble twins, or at least in DW's mind, where she's looking for any conclusion possible.
That's right. So a big running theme in this episode is DW hypothesizing how the Blankie could have gone missing in these various locations.
Right. She's not at a loss for creativity because in her mind, in figuring out how the Tibble twins got her Blankie, the Tibble twins become, they go from these impish little troublemakers to kind of like ninjas.
Or Sonic and Knuckles like in their acrobatics and rail grinding ability.
Yeah, because they slide down the banister, their whole bodies, and they do this awesome tuck and roll flip off of it. And
they do a triple somersault in midair.
And the dismount is on point, and then they just come up and steal her Blankie. Arthur rightly asks, how could they do that without you and Mom seeing them? And then DW thinks Mrs. Tibble must have thrown magic dust on us.
That's right, she had one of those magic dust gimmicks.
Yeah.
In the Great Muda or something.
Mr. Fuji with the powder.
Mr. Fuji, that's what I was thinking of, Mr. Fuji.
Mr. Fuji. Yeah, so they go to the Tibble's place, but no, Mrs. Tibble says that the twins have been with Trixie all weekend.
I didn't pick up on that.
Just a throwaway line of why they're not there, and but it just left me being like, who's Trixie? Who is that? Is that their mother? Is that their aunt? Is that their sister?
Another babysitter, perhaps?
Another babysitter? I guess that they get to leave the house or something.
Their parole officer.
And then Mrs. Tibble, takes that as Arthur asking to play with them and just oh, great, now I'll have to play with those two little monsters.
This whole episode, something about Arthur with a chip on his shoulder I'm way into. I love it when he's in a bad mood and he's just not when he's whining. I hate when Arthur's whining, but I like when Arthur's grouching.
Yeah. Grumping.
Yeah. When Arthur he's I don't know, when he's just kind of a big meanie and he's not into whatever's going on.
Right.
I get a kick out of him. He fits that role well for me.
Just harumphing around.
Yeah, for sure.
The next place they go is the dry cleaners, where DW theorizes that the spinning of the dry cleaning machine hypnotized her, and then all of a sudden a robotic arm with a cartoon glove hand came out and ordered her to hand over the Blankie. And then she walks out kind of like a mummy under hypnosis.
This is one of the ones that I think were the most abstract for me. One, because I don't think I was ever at a dry cleaners in the 90s, so I've never seen one of those contraptions IRL.
From what I remember, they don't go very fast. At least, I mean, I don't know. It's been a long time since I was at a dry cleaner in the 90s. So
I can imagine about 20 years or so.
as a matter of fact,
I'm no expert, but
I'm no big city lawyer. DW and Arthur go to the dry cleaners and, obviously get pretty much laughed off by the person who works there. And she's like, "Oh, aren't you the cutest little girl?" And DW's just like, "But such a cute little girl. Would you. Like a literal Gucci gooing.
That's right. She's touching her face.
Yeah, it's weird. But we do get a great DW line here of, they leave. Arthur says, "I can't believe she thought you were cute." And then DW says, "I am cute. I'm adorable." Just like this is me. Like, she was right. I'm frustrated, but she was right to do it because look at me.
The buddy cop banter in this episode, I think, is its real strong suit. We haven't had a just DW and Arthur episode in a while, and they work so well together. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. They are brother and sister, but when an episode focuses on just their two characters interacting, I always am into it.
There's an equal amount of love and animosity. Underscoring all of their conversations.
Like any good buddy cop story. They're a real Mel Gibson and Donald Glover.
Danny Glover.
Excuse me.
Mel Gibson and Donald Glover would be something.
That would be.
Mad Max and Childish Gambino. Man, oh man.
Man, oh man.
So the next place they go is the library, where DW thought Blankie might have gotten caught in one of the books they were returning and went in the slot because she was too busy waving to Miss Turner. Miss Turner looks everywhere but can't find anything, and although suggests a book on Blankies. All right, well.
Yeah, check the card catalogs for a book on Blankies. I'll get right on that.
While they're at the library, Arthur is horrified to see that Binky Barnes is there.
Oh, this is so great. This is so good.
And he says, "I don't want him to know I'm looking for a Blankie." And then Binky is reading and then looks up and says, "Oh, no, it's Arthur. I don't want him to know I'm reading books." And then they both kind of slink past each other, saying nothing. I thought Binky's line was pretty funny.
Binky's got that great strategy of where he's covering his face with the book he's reading, even though he's still wearing his patented giant orange shirt.
Yeah.
It's so obvious that it's Binky.
Even though he's the largest 9-year-old you've ever seen.
Exactly.
Like, he's as tall as me. The next place they go is the car wash, where DW thinks that the vacuum cleaner part of the car wash sucked the Blankie out of the car because DW had the window rolled down a little bit.
To which
I was like, close the damn window!
What are you doing having a window open in the car wash? DW was like, the water was dripping down. And I was like, you think?
My girlfriend and I just finished watching the Final Destination movies. That's how somebody dies in the last movie. They get killed by the car wash when they leave the sunroof open.
I mean, at that point, though, that's a real Darwin Award. That's kind of your own fault.
It's half of that, but also half of, death, collects and makes things happen. It's not entirely their fault, although they are partially to blame. But still, it's like, just seeing this and just like, no, this could have gone so wrong. Close the damn window. But they ask one of the workers there, and he says, no, it only sucks up water, not Blankies. But then he says, "Here, you can have my polishing cloth that he was just using."
That's covered with oil.
Yeah, oil stains. And then DW kind of walks away, and then Arthur's like, "It's not dirty enough for her."
Oh, Arthur coming through.
Arthur's practicing his tight 5 on everybody he sees.
He just can't help himself.
And then their final stop was the Sugar Bowl. And in the flashback, Mom's having ice cream, finishing hers off. DW eating pudding out of what looks like a microwave tray. Like, it just looked kind of weird. It looked like something that you would make, Zappums in or something. And also has, one bite of her pudding and then leaves the rest. And I was like, come on, man. I just paid for that.
Maybe it was Totino's Pizza Roll flavored pudding.
Ew.
I mean, you wouldn't be surprised. I guess that's at Brain's mom's place, not the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, Sugar Bowl's more
More traditional?
More traditional, let's say. And then Arthur sees his friends in the sugar bowl and, again, doesn't want to be seen, doesn't want them to know he's looking for a Blankie. I did like DW because, of course, they've been, like, everywhere that afternoon. And DW says, I must have left my Blankie at the table. And Arthur's just like, that's it? She's like, I'm too tired to think of anything. Come on. Like, at this point, she's like, yeah, she's probably real tuckered. DW kind of goes snooping around. Arthur's trying to act casual, but then his friends see him. It's like, I think it's Prunella, Sue Ellen, Muffy, and Francine. Well, mostly a lot of his girlfriends. And, Francine goes, Arthur, over here. And I liked Arthur's nervous acknowledgement. He's just like, hey.
This is the most realistic moment in Arthur thus far.
Well, when Arthur just goes, hey.
I thought I was looking at a documentary about myself when Arthur goes, I can't let those girls see me looking for a Blankie. And they're like, hey, Arthur. The way he turns around, stiffens up his whole body like a board, leans backwards and goes, hey. It almost doesn't even sound like Arthur. Like the voice actor just kind of sounds like themselves in an awkward scenario.
It sounds like he's just trying to be cool.
I believe I've made that exact same face, body language, and inflection and tone saying the words, hey, hey, when I'm in this scenario. Maybe not looking for a Blankie, but when I'm in an embarrassing situation, I'm getting spotted by someone I did not want to be spotted by.
Right.
It was like it was looking in a mirror, man.
It did remind me of many times I've done the same thing too. Just like, oh, hey,
hey,
this guy.
How you been doing?
Right.
Hey, high school's been good, huh?
Yeah, so
3 kids, wow.
Arthur's trying to hide the fact that DW is currently on all fours looking for a Blankie, like going around a stool. And, he just says like, oh, some make-believe game. You know how kids are. And then DW comes up and says, we can go. They don't have it. And Arthur quickly covers and just like, favorite flavor. They don't have her favorite flavor. And it's just like, all right, let's go now. And then Francine says, what's her favorite flavor? To which Arthur, with all the yes ands as best he can in this situation, just says, chocolate, vanilla chip, Blankie. And it's just met by like 1,000-yard stares, and he's like, okay, bye. Just gets the heck out of Dodge.
He was in a tough predicament, though, right? Because he couldn't say a flavor that they might actually have, but he had to make it semi-realistic.
Yeah. And then just added Blankie because he
chocolate vanilla chip Blankie. I wonder how that would taste.
So then Arthur's finally had enough, and he's just like, you know what, nuts to this. I'm going to Buster's. And as soon as he gets to Buster's, he finds out that his Buster's mom returned all the tapes. So either they were out for from 9 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, or my question was, if they got quote unquote all the Renegade Joe movies, how do they expect to watch them all in an afternoon if they already got returned?
My theory is that Buster just wasn't being he wasn't communicating with Arthur properly, and they might have gotten all the Renegade Joe movies earlier in the week. And maybe he was saying, Arthur, we got to watch these this afternoon because they're due this afternoon.
Maybe, could be.
Hence the marathon.
Then Buster explains what is happening in the... For some reason, he talks about one Renegade Joe movie, but maybe he just means the latest one. But he was watching the latest one. Renegade Joe infiltrates a secret underground society of gorillas.
Are they flying gorillas? Do they fly?
I think they're flying gorillas or something.
Yet they live underground.
Yeah, and then Renegade Joe infiltrates them by wearing a gorilla suit, and it's just like, this sounds really close to a Planet of the Apes movie. This is this close to underground of the Planet of the Apes.
I guess.
It's just like Indiana. It sounded like Indiana Jones meets the Planet of the Apes, which would be kind of cool. But of course, Arthur missed everything, and kind of gives DW a mean look. Then back at home, DW still hasn't found her Blankie, and goes to bed. And then Arthur's kind of up late, on Saturday night reading comics, and he hears DW kind of moaning in her sleep, like, "Give it back, give it back," and then kind of goes to check on her, and she's having a bad dream that somebody stole her Blankie.
DW's a pretty big sleep talker, huh?
Yeah.
We just had an episode where she was
the one about the earrings.
My beautiful earrings.
I like your earrings. Do you like my earrings? Yeah. It's very narratively convenient. So Arthur's trying to make her feel better, saying that they'll find it tomorrow. But then he gets an idea of what might help, and he goes to offer her Stanley. But DW says, it's not the same thing. It doesn't work like that. And all of a sudden, Powell comes in the room, and he's carrying something a very familiar shape, but DW doesn't recognize it. She's kind of yells at him. She's like, "Get away from me, pal! I don't want that." And is near tears at this point. But Arthur kind of takes a look at him, just like, "But DW, this is your Blankie." And she's like, "No, it isn't. For one thing, it smells." And Arthur's like, "Clean?" And so it turns out it is the Blankie. It's just been cleaned, and this is where I groaned. Come on, man! Like this. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. But just this, that's where I groaned. Arthur leaves her with the Blankie, and she apologizes to Pal under duress. DW says, "Blankie says thank you for helping me find her." I like how Arthur goes to bed after they just like puts his face in the pillow, just like, that dumb Blankie. But then he's tossing and turning because something isn't right, and he realizes he left Stanley behind in DW's room. And then DW kind of comes into his room just like with Stanley in her hands. He's like, "You left this in my room." It's like, I would put it back, but I'm sure you don't need it. And then Arthur goes bananas. Like, you might as well have like gotten like, in Looney Tunes when, Bugs Bunny is like the matador and he's against the bull and the bull gets like those red flashing eyes. That may as well have happened to Arthur, because all you hear at this point, the episode ends with like a shot of the Reed house as, DW closes her door, and then the whole house shakes as Arthur's pounding on the door and yelling for his dad. Just like, "Hey, Dad, DW will give me back Stanley."
Arthur's got some deep-seated issues, it seems.
Like he flies off the handle. It's nuts in the middle of the night. So clearly he needs Stanley a bit more than he let on. All right, that's that episode. I actually couldn't find a Now a Word From Us Kids for this one.
Same here.
So, yeah.
What do you think it would be? It's our new segment, Imagining Words From Us Kids.
And now a thought from us adults.
Usually it's something to do with the first episode,
It's got to be like they're
talking about like their stuffed animals.
Their stuffed animals, their Blankies and stuff like that.
I need a nightlight. You know what? I think I vaguely remember a kid talking about a nightlight. It might not be this episode. There might be another Arthur Nightlight episode.
Yeah, there is an Arthur Nightlight episode.
Oh, okay. Gee, my brain's playing tricks on me.
My mind is playing tricks on me.
And that's our extra music for the Now From Words From Us Adults segment.
And now back to the Ghetto Boys. Our second episode is Arthur's substitute teacher trouble. So Arthur is once again talking to the camera, this time coming out of class with a stack of books. Him and Buster both like, from, hands to chin stack of books that they have to do homework on. He's just like, they have a bunch of homework for Mr. Ratburn. And then we get, so this is one of my quote unquote favorite recurring gags in that it makes me laugh, but it also infuriates me, which is the light homework that everybody else gets that's not in Mr. Ratburn's class. So it's like, their homework for Mr. Ratburn's class is to study how clouds are formed. And Mrs. Sweetwater's class, all they have to do for homework is look at some clouds. And there's just these two kids on the lawn looking up at the sky being like, "It looks like a bunny." "Yeah, it's so cute." And I'm like, that's their homework. Just look at some clouds.
Public education system for you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. And then this leads into Arthur's main thrust, that Mr. Ratburn is the toughest teacher on Earth, and he turns everything into an opportunity for schoolwork. Like they go to a field trip to the zoo. He asks Arthur, he asked Francine, what is the average lifespan of a Galapagos turtle?
Okay, let me get ahead of you here.
Yeah, go ahead.
All the questions that Mr. Ratburn asks on the field trip are pertinent and interesting. He's not being he's not being as tough as they let on. He's literally just teaching. He's not like, "Oh, I want to report on all this stuff at the zoo." Maybe that happened off screen, but he's just trying to get the kids to be curious, but not just point at the animals and go, "Look, that's an animal."
But it's also a bit different than telling them the fact itself and then asking them, because he's asking it of just if you don't tell me, then you don't get marks for the day. And it's kind of like, well, how do you expect them to know that?
But is that what he says, or is he just like?
No,
I'm expecting he asks them the answer, and then they're like, I don't know, and then maybe he tells them.
Well, we never get that because everybody just kind of stares off into the camera. And
exactly, because all the other teachers are filling their heads full of nonsense.
That's right. He asks Arthur what a rhino's horn is made of.
Ivory. I got that one.
Yeah. And he asks Buster, at what temperature does ice cream solidify? Which is actually kind of interesting. I'd like to know.
What do you remember what temperature water solidifies at? Is it 0?
No, I don't know.
It's like an exact number that water always freezes at. Oh, see, now I'm embarrassing myself.
Well, 0 is the freezing mark.
There you go. So it might be 0, but because ice cream has all these other ingredients, it probably changes.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
That's interesting. That's some homework for you listeners out there. If you're an ice cream scientist,
we're gonna Mr. Ratburn this podcast. We expect these answers on our desk by next week. And then Arthur says no tougher teacher has been found this side of the planet Neptune. And then Buster does an epic wipeout. Like, they obviously animate this huge crack in the sidewalk so that Buster can stick his foot in it. He's got the big stack of books. He steps in it, books fall down, he slides in a puddle, and then just wipes out. And it's pretty something.
If Arthur was filming, he could submit that to Thrasher's Hall of Meat.
So the episode begins with everybody in Mr. Ratburn's class, and he's asking for them to plot the latitude and longitude of Ulaanbaatar.
Again, educational. I consider myself to be a pretty well-read guy, not to toot my own horn. I have no idea where that is.
So I actually took the liberty of looking it up. Here's something interesting, is that obviously this was in 1996, and it's spelled ULAN space BATOR. So it's 2 words, which apparently was an anglicization of what the country's actual name is, Ulaanbaatar, ULAANBATAR, and it was only recently changed back to its original spelling in the English before, and previously it had been, mixed into or split into 2 words. Ulaanbaatar is Mongolia's capital and its largest city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, they're using globes to find latitude and longitude. Arthur looks over to Mrs. Sweetwater's class, and it literally is her being like, class, close your eyes. Now, find your nose. And, this is where I start pulling my hair out. I'm like, find your nose? What are we doing here?
More like find your brain.
Jeez, Louise.
And that was me channeling Arthur in the first episode this week.
Well, and then... Ooh, got him. And then Arthur just starts, he just kind of puts his hand on his head, shakes his head, and I'm doing that too, but maybe for a different reason.
That's right, because he's shaking his head because he's jealous of them.
Yeah. So at the beginning of this episode, Mr. Ratburn kind of had a bit of a tickle in his throat, kept kind of.
Oh, wait. I think is this the part where Arthur, do you have a headache?
Yes.
Okay, so Arthur puts his hand to his head and he shakes his head. This was the hardest I laughed at these 2 episodes. Arthur's face palming quite literally, and someone asks Arthur, "Do you have a headache?"
Ratburn asks,
and Arthur goes, "Do I?"
It's great. It's like, do I? I mean, no.
He's so bored and annoyed that he doesn't even know who he's talking to.
Yeah, it's great.
He's completely checked out.
Yeah, that I wrote that down too. But Mr. Ratburn's voice is clearly getting worse, and he goes into Mr. Haney's office and tries to communicate that he can't do class, but he can barely get the words out at this point. It's just like, Mr. Haney, I can't do class. Just really choking on his words, and Mr. Haney kind of manages to backdoor his way into figuring out what's wrong with Mr. Ratburn.
He goes, "You'll have to tell me. It looks like you have a sore throat."
It's just like, I hate to tell you this, but I think you're losing your voice.
You'll have to tell me what you're trying to tell me once you feel better.
Exactly.
Mr. Ratburn really is doing his best. I'm not wearing hockey pads.
His best Christian Bale Batman voice. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's not what I do, but what I teach that defines me. Tell me where they are. We must have friends.
Oh, no.
All right, let's cut that off right there. So Mr. Haney doesn't replace. He comes into their class and he says, "Children, I have some bad news." And then, just apropos of nothing, Buster, ever the conspiracy theorist, just says, "He's going to say we have to go to school all summer. I know it." Like he's just like preparing for the worst of just like principal's here. Like something bad's happening. Like it's all going down.
Wasn't that the plot of Recess the movie? They were trying to the school board was like trying to eliminate summer vacation by blowing up the moon so there wouldn't be winter, or the sun. They were going to block out the sun so it wasn't going to be winter anymore.
Man.
No, it was going to be winter all year long, so there would be no summer vacation. Because the reason for this was statistically, like schools in Iceland and like all those Nordic places did the best because they had the shortest summer, and so the school board were going to try and get their grades up by using the moon to block out the sun so it'd be winter all year long. And then in like his final heroic act, TJ Detweiler gives this huge monologue about like, we'll bike in the slush. It doesn't matter. We'll always have summer vacation in our hearts.
Wow, I never thought Principal Prickly would go that far. I haven't seen Recess Schools Out since I saw it in theaters.
That's what it was called, Recess Schools Out. You know what? I don't think I have either. I just have a memory about some weird stuff.
Add that to the list of Patreon goals.
That song has that movie has the song "One Is the Loneliest Number" by Three Dog Night in it.
Whoa.
That's the other thing I remember about that movie.
For the parents. Highly unusual. You know, he says Mr. Ratburn's ill and will be out for the rest of the week. So they're in the middle of the school day at this point. Just like, have you ever had that happen to you where you had to get like a sub in the middle of a day?
I think so. I think we've had some emergencies.
It's so unusual.
It was really long ago. But it definitely has happened. It would have to happen, again, in elementary school when you only have one teacher all day long.
Yeah.
And I think it had happened back then.
Sure.
But it was very, very rare.
So, you know, they start thinking about who might be their substitute teacher, and we get a nice, an interesting reel of their various substitute teachers. So the first one...
This was the one thing I remembered the most from this episode, from watching it when I was younger.
So the first one is Mr. Elkin, who is, of course, an elk, and he's got those big, giant... antlers or antlers.
You had it.
Excuse me. And you know, the thing about him is that he's just a little clumsy, and you know,
they're kind of mean to him. Like they're like, "Oh, Mr. Elkin," rolling their eyes. He can't help it. He's got big old antlers.
Well, to be fair, you know, it's Mr. Elkin looking over their work, and you know, Arthur says, "Mr. Elkin, is this right?" And he kind of turns his head a bit too swift and ends up giving Buster a Stan Hansen lariat with his head, like just he like knocks him on his ass with his antler, and he's like, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah, he seemed he seemed awkward, but he seemed nice.
It seemed
especially compared to this rogues gallery of substitute teachers that they start to get into. Mr. Elkin is by far
the least offensive.
Yeah, for sure.
The least offensive of the not so good ones, because then we got to the next one, and I felt so bad for you because you know we you know a couple times this show we talked about like gleeking and how you think like the Francine like getting the drinking through the space in her teeth was super gross. And then the next person we get is Mrs. Bofini, and her whole thing is that she just chews super loudly. And I'm not even that like bothered by chewing noises. Like my girlfriend is big time. But this was getting to the point where I was like, oh, okay, this is like, let's not do this anymore.
So remember when I told you that my parents have watched a little bit of Arthur and they have some sort of Arthur jokes that they use as inside jokes?
Yes, yeah.
Mrs. Bofini is another one. Well, they'll reference
really?
Mrs. Bofini chewing on that apple just is the answer.
Yeah. Well, and she's doing it in time with this weird music.
That's right. The music in this is really strange.
It's like whir, 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 whir. And she's like, spell leather. And then it gets super weird because there's like a weird horn in the back. It's like it's like something you might hear in like it's like Fear and Loathing or something. It's very.
Ignore the terrible chewing. You're saying it's something out of a Terry Gilliam film?
Yeah.
Like it's like something out of Brazil. That's what it's like. It's like Brazil.
Because you kind of got the close up on her face. You can almost imagine like a fish eye lens kind of thing. It's like guest director Terry Gilliam of this
What
one
animal
part.
is she? Is she a llama? Because that'd be hilarious.
No, I think she's a lamb or a sheep.
Oh, okay. If she was a llama, because they're notorious chewers.
Yeah, big time. And then their next one is Miss Tremolo, who mumbles everything.
Oh, Miss Tremolo's terrible.
Yeah, because
I would yell at her if I was in that class. I'd be like, "Speak up! I'm trying to learn over here." Oh my goodness, that's another one of my pet peeves.
Because it really is. She's just like, how did you get your teaching degree? Like, what are we doing here?
From the oh god, this is a real bad joke. from the Minion School of Arts. Moving on.
It's for somebody. And then finally, the one substitute teacher that they remember fondly is Ms. Blank, who actually didn't show up.
This is so good.
So essentially, it's just like your substitute teacher, Ms. Blank, is unable to come in. And, this is Mrs. Sweetwater.
Buster was like, who was Miss Blank again? Arthur's like, you don't remember Miss Blank?
And it's just like essentially the joke is that she wasn't there, so Mrs. Sweetwater had to, give them coloring and cookies and stuff. So they're just like, oh, yeah, that was great when we didn't have a teacher. And then Mr. Haney comes back and says, your substitute teacher will be Mr. Ratburn's own sister, Ms. Ratburn, which like everybody is completely shocked about because this is the best part of the episode that we go into right here because it's like everybody kind of has their shocked face. And then we go back to the treehouse with Arthur, Francine, and Buster. And, Arthur's like, maybe it won't be so bad. And Francine's like, what are the chances of that? They grew up in the same house, Arthur. And then Francine kind of takes us through the Ratburn brother and sister as like through the years.
So everything about this sequence is awesome.
No, it's great.
It's all in sepia tone to show that it's like old.
Yes.
As we go through the years, all the outfits are period appropriate.
Yeah.
So like when they're in college, everybody's wearing like bell bottoms and like I guess 70s stuff.
Yeah, 70s.
But earlier, they look like they're very neat and tidy and dressed like the 60s. The banter back and forth between Mr. Ratburn and his sister.
They are so catty. It's great.
But they also have this like evil genius kind of vibe. Like I got kind of like a Pinky and the Brain vibe from them.
It's very sinister.
But it also all fits into the kids' theories about Mr. Ratburn continuity. I'll let you run through it like bit by bit.
Oh,
it's fantastic, like you said.
And their voices are great too because you really get to hear Mr. Ratburn's voice actor like flex his muscle a little bit because he's got to be Ratburn through the ages. So it starts off with them as babies, and they both got diapers on and like little outfits. So Ms. Ratburn is in her crib, and Mr. Ratburn comes in with a dictionary and says, "Hey, can you spell antediluvian?"
It's so good.
And she says, "Of course, can't you? Now stop bothering me. I'm doing calculus on like this personal computer," which if it was like the 1950s or something, I don't know how they would have gotten
that would have to fill the room.
Or something.
But you hit the nail on the head with everything that's awesome about this sequence. The voice work is what really makes it.
It ties it together. Then when they're like Arthur's age and... Again, with the voices, I thought this was really great because it's like they're both going to the breakfast table and just like, are you having nails for breakfast again? And
again, fits with this whole sequence is just a big inside joke for you fans of like the first.
We get the return. We get the return of Nails, the return of the hit cereal Nails, and then Mr. Ratburn's like, "Of course, want some?" Like he sounds like a dubbed anime character. Like,
yes, that's totally. You think you could be on my team? Yeah. Not impressive.
Like something out of Girl Chan in Paradise.
Do you know what he sounds like?
What does he sound like?
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, he kind of does, doesn't he? Like,
You're too slow.
He sounds like a parody of Sonic the Hedgehog. He sounds like Ego Raptor doing Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah. Or like a really cartoonish Shadow the Hedgehog.
Sure,
like, you're not even good enough to be my imitation.
Yeah, we get there. Yeah. And of course, Ms. Ratburn's so tough that she eats her nails without milk. But... another interesting, and this actually I thought was a really good attention to detail, was Mr. Ratburn takes a screw out of his bowl of nails, and then she says, "Is that a screw? I'll take it. They're the best parts." And that's the one that he threw out in the second episode. Mr. Ratburn doesn't like the screws in Nails cereal.
Also in the second episode, though, he forgoes the milk, so maybe he grew out of him liking milk on Nails.
Could be he's so evil he eats it without milk, and he learned it from his sister. Mm-hmm. And then we go to college, and this is where it all kind of comes together. This is the
my goodness! This whole sequence.
This is the best part because Ms. Ratburn comes in with like a load lifter of books,
like she's Baron Corbin or something.
Yeah. And then Mr. Ratburn comes in, and at this point, they've learned evil. Like they know they know the ways of treachery and deceit.
Could you imagine, what I like to picture during this sequence is like everybody else at this university watching this play out. And I can imagine like what they would think of the Ratburns, like, oh my goodness, these Ratburn people.
Because it's like a mix between anime and a CW show. Because they're just like constantly backstabbing each other and doing these circuitous schemes to get themselves ahead. Like Mr. Ratburn, comes up and he's just like, even though you thought you got this answer right on the test,
This is so crazy.
I found a mistake that the professor missed. And I informed him, and he's lowering your grade. And then
if someone did that to me, I might kill them. I might actually murder them. That's just so nuts.
It's so unbelievably petty. and then even more so, Ms. Ratburn's like, you know that star that you discovered? I checked it. And for your information, it's just gas. I informed the whoever, like the dean of students, they're taking your name off the honor roll. I'm like, wow, that's even worse. And, you know, Mr. Ratburn gets a couple of good, like he's just steaming, just like, why must you compete with me? You know I'm smarter. Like real anime stuff, like you said, Shadow the Hedgehog, I'm just like, you're not even good enough to be my equal.
Yeah.
They do it, go back and forth like R not, am 2, and then Mr. Ratburn says am 222, and she says, you sound like a train.
Oh my goodness.
And then we get a little bit of Mr. Ratburn, maybe Arthur editorializing a little bit because he goes, who invented little sisters anyway? And then we get, you know, fantastic deliveries of the final line because Mr. Ratburn, I don't know if I'll get through this, but just like, I'll show you. One day I'll be the toughest teacher in the universe. And then she says, no, you won't. I'll be even tougher.
This is like the rest
round of applause.
The rest of this
Great
episode
stuff.
could be terrible, and it would be worth watching for this quick, like 3-minute sequence.
I think that's what I want to take away for everybody listening is that if you haven't seen this episode yet, then no matter what we say at the end, whether we recommend this episode, watch this part.
Oh my
it's
goodness.
fantastic.
It's masterclass from animation to the details and the settings
to the voice work.
The like comedic timing on the young Mr. Ratburn's lines is so good.
I want to see a 25 episode anime about Mr. Ratburn.
I feel like it's like so on the nose that I feel like it's like pulling from something, like some like petulant genius character from some sitcom way back in the day. I can't put my finger on it, but like it's almost too good for the writers to have come up by themselves. And if they did, all the credit in the world to them.
It sounds so good, and it makes me so sad that
He's like evil Urkel. That's what he's like. He's like an evil Steve Urkel or Stefan Urkel.
Stefan Urkel. It makes me sad that we'll probably never see this again because it's just a product of their imaginations.
I don't know. They brought the nails gag back, so maybe this will come back.
I can only hope, but this was really, really great. So Arthur's dreading going to school the next day because he figures that Miss Ratburn will be terrible, even worse than Mr. Ratburn. So Mom and Dad are on the couch kind of looking at what I'm going to guess is Dad's expense reports for the catering business.
Tough when you run your own business, man. That's some complicated stuff.
Absolutely. Arthur's dad is not a businessman. He's a businessman. Arthur offers to stay home from school and help with Dad's expense reports because he's thinking of Kate's future.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, it's like Arthur's just desperate to get going to school. As they're waiting the next day for Miss Ratburn, Francine's just like, if she's anything like the rat, I'm going to go out with a stomach ache. And then Arthur's gimmick is that maybe I'll lose my glasses at lunchtime and get sent home. So they've got their built-in excuses ready to go. So everybody gasps as she comes in the door, and then immediately it's like exactly what they didn't expect.
Well, before that, Buster goes, get ready to work like dogs, which is a kind of a really strange line, but I thought it was funny.
Well, Miss Ratburn comes in, introduces herself as Ms. Rodentia Ratburn. All right, a little too clever by half on Rodentia. But, she says, my brother has filled me in on everything. That's where Buster's like, all right, here we go. But then, she's like, she's very bright. She's very cheery. She's wearing these, she's wearing like a long skirt and like a cardigan sweater and stuff like that. Or not a cardigan, but like a sweater and bright clothing, cheery disposition. So right away you're just like, oh, okay, this is where we're going. And then her first assignment is for them to recite the 1 times table, which they do very happily because they know it very well at this point. They're all just like...
They all have these big, goofy smiles on their faces.
1 times 1 is 1. And they're just like, yeah, all right, let's do it. Fun fact, this episode is how I remembered the 2 times table in my head.
Oh.
Up to, because they go up to 2 times 14 when they're... And, of course, I just latched onto it as a kid, like memorizing Arthur episodes and like, all right. And then after a while, I was like... oh, it's every second number. That's what the 2 times table is. That's how it helped to click.
Much like how Arthur taught me that 9 times 9 was 81.
81.
This got me thinking, a little quick aside, it got me thinking about how methodology behind education has changed over the years and how people think about education has changed.
Right.
I forgot how much in the 90s and the early 2000s elementary school was based on sheer memorization. Like, when you think about the times tables like this, you're not really like processing what's going on. You're just like, yes, 2 times 2 is indeed 4.
You're committing it to memory. You're not
The way they're chanting and stuff, like, I remember this happening all the time, and there's just something weird about it looking back on it now.
Yeah.
It shows how, academically, opinions have changed over the years.
For sure. And this is also how I remembered what yellow and blue make, because she's doing increasingly like simple tasks. Like, she has these little color wheels, like, what do yellow and blue make? Green! And everybody's like, all right, this is awesome. This is the easiest day of school ever. But then that becomes too much of a good thing, because after the color thing, she goes, she has flashcards of read this word. And it's like a picture of a dog and the word dog. And they're just like, dog.
Just as awesome as their like super over enthusiastic 1 times tables were.
Dog.
Like, all their faces are super long. They're like you can see how just mind-numbingly bored they all are.
And it's like, now try this word. Cat.
Yeah, she's like, this one's a little bit tougher. Cat.
Then one that hits a little too close to home, because then she brings out the guitar and starts singing I Like Fudge.
Again, Lucas's parents' inside joke meme alert. My mom would reference the I Like Fudge song all the time. And up to this point, I attributed it to Mrs. Sweetwater. I thought she was the one who sang I Like Fudge. But no, it's Miss Ratburn.
I like fudge. I like fudge. If you ask me what I like, I say I like fudge.
Coming to a Migos record near you.
And then Arthur looks over in Mrs. Sweetwater's class, and she is also breaking out the acoustic guitar. Anyway, here's Wonderwall for kids.
No.
And then Arthur.
Oh gosh, that'd be the worst school day ever.
And then Arthur just looks at the camera and goes, shocking.
That is kind of a weird aside.
And then at this point, Miss Ratburn has a hand puppet on and is asking Francine what season comes after fall, and she's like, winter. Like, she's being held hostage. And then the brain just stands up. He can't take any more of this. He's like, for goodness sake, we're in 3rd grade, We see a cross-section of the brain's brain, and it's like, is it like shrinking or melting? Right. Well, at this, when we get into the 2 times table, that's when we get all the visual gags, everybody getting tired. And then, she says, you think this work is too easy? Then let's recite the 2 times table. And this is where we get it. And then this is where everybody gets super bored, because Arthur says, what time is it? And Buster says, it's only 10 o'clock a.m.
As if they were going to be at school at 10 o'clock p.m. That's another good line.
Like, Francine's doodling, Muffy's yawning, Sue Ellen and Buster are falling asleep, and then we get like an image of Brain's brain, and it is just melting out of his skeleton. Buster like slams his head on his desk, like falls asleep. And in this, we get another reference to Planet of the Apes.
I was going to say, speaking of Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, and we get a reference to Planet of the Apes where Buster finds himself on a sandy beach with the tide kind of coming in, and then he looks ahead and he screams because he sees Ms. Ratburn made up to be like the Statue of Liberty with the hand puppet in her hand, and it's washed up on the beach like it is in Planet of the Apes. And I'm like, I get it, but
what is this saying?
What's the reference? Like, it was Earth all along? Is that what? Anyway, it's a nice visual reference, but it kind of doesn't make sense. So at this point, they are just going crazy. Like, Buster wakes up screaming. The day is over, and Ms. Ratburn is apparently going to be here for the rest of the week. And she says tomorrow we'll read aloud from Spotty Goes Accounting, and this is I said earlier, it's all Brain can take. This is the breaking point.
So Brain acts much like me after a long day of work. He just
don't panic. Just get home to your computer. Like, same, dude.
Yeah, been there.
Brain shoves a student aside and runs out the door. Like, he can't leave fast enough. And later Buster...
Yeah, Brain's declining mental state is the funniest part of this whole sequence.
Yeah.
Just like he can't be inundated with these easy questions anymore, or else he'll literally lose his mind.
As they regroup later, Buster says, I thought the Brain was going to cry. And then this is where Arthur says, I actually miss Mr. Ratburn. And at first, Buster and Fancy go, and then they kind of think about it like, yeah, so do I. And this is where the wheel turns of like, you know what? As much as we hate all that work, it really was better than the alternative. It's like we can't go back to the way things used to be. And then the next day, they're just getting ready for another day with Ms. Rodentia Ratburn. But then Mr. Haney comes in and says, Ms. Ratburn will not be teaching your class today because Mr. Ratburn returned early. And I love this shot of him coming back in because it's him coming through the door, and then we see in the foreground like the representation of the kids cheering is like waving their hands in the air, but there's like kids who are throwing hats up in the air.
One kid has American flag. One kid's throwing a graduation hat in the air.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty funny. And it's like, all right, I'm back. The fun and games are over. So they get right down to the work. And then there are two kids over in Miss Sweetwater's class who see that Mr. Ratburn has returned. And they say, oh no, he's back. I feel sorry for those kids. And then they're about to have story time with Mr. Clown. And then Arthur looks back at them and says, boy, I feel sorry for those kids. And then they get to work much more happily than they would have before. And that's the end of the episode. All right, so let's put these episodes in review. Let's go back to DW's Blankie. Lucas, what did you think?
DW's Blankie, I enjoyed the majority of the episode. The first 3/4 of it, I thought it was a fun little adventure of them trying to solve the mystery. I liked the banter between DW and Arthur. It had a really buddy cop vibe, and I was getting a huge kick out of Arthur just being a whole big old grump through the whole thing. That episode really hits the brakes in the last quarter. Like the whole sequence of them going to bed, I just felt like it took forever. And I was mentally checked out. Like when you were talking about Arthur freaking out, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that did happen. My eyes had just started to glaze over because I could see like the conclusion of, oh, the Blankie was in the wash all along, a mile away. And so I was like, okay, guys, let's wrap it up. And it just kept going and going. So it had a really solid first 3/4. I thought it was just a fun little mystery episode. And then it just kind of goes off the rails near the end. But it wasn't bad. Like, I just thought it was fine. It just didn't stick the ending.
I'm lukewarm on it. There were some parts that I can admit were pretty funny. A good line here or there. But as I said before, like, the ending is really just kind of like, really? Like, that's how we wrap this all up? Like, it was just in the wash the whole time, and I don't know. It just, the ending it didn't stick the landing. I agree with you. I thought that it kind of played out almost like a children's book. Like, I don't know if there is a book of DW's Blankie, but it felt like any number of children's books where it's like, where did I go today? Well, I went here with mommy, and then I went here, and then I went here. So it felt like it was almost adapted from a children's book, but I don't know if that's true or not. It really took a more simple plot structure, and I mean, that's fine, but it didn't really didn't really speak to me. Like, I didn't really enjoy it all that much. It was fine, but I wouldn't watch it again.
I think I have a little bit more of a soft spot for it because I love just spending time with Arthur and DW. Like, I love episodes where like they're kind of like a team and they're working on a common goal. I like that dichotomy. But you're right. Like, it is just kind of middling. Though DW's asides are very funny. Like, when she's talking about what she thinks will happen to the Blankie.
A lot of times she is the star of the show when she's allowed to get a few lines.
And then also one more thing. Yeah. Arthur going, hey, might be up there with one of my favorite Arthur moments of all time. So It's got that.
All right. Arthur's substitute teacher trouble. Now, this may sound a little incongruous with what we were just talking about. I actually thought the episode overall was also kind of just okay. Like this,
interesting.
Like the story of it, I thought was fine. I think what was strongest was that there were some funny lines in there, and admittedly, that minute and a half, 2-minute stretch of Mr. and Ms. Ratburn. I thought that was easily the best part, and the rest of it was okay. I liked it. I like it a little better than DW's Blankie because I like seeing the other side of the Ratburn family. I thought that was kind of a fun dichotomy. I like the message actually, where it's like you don't know how good you have it sometimes. And I like
Grass is always greener.
because we've said before of just like how much better for them Mr. Ratburn's class is than the other two third grade classes. And this is a great illustration of why it's good, because they're being challenged, and then when they're not challenged, they're completely bored and, basically wasting their time. So I think that's a good message to send. But other than that, I didn't really connect with it as much as other episodes, but I don't have any ill will towards it. Like I said, like it a little better than DW's Blankie, and there were just a couple of really strong parts in there, but as a whole, it didn't add up for me.
I loved this episode,
Okay.
because I think it works on multiple levels. One, I think it's one of the best funny episodes where it's just joke after joke after joke. It hits so hard. But two, I think the overall plot line is important to the Arthur canon because they address an issue that you've had throughout the series. The series hasn't really taken a hard stance over, is Mrs. Sweetwater's class actually bad for these other kids? It's kind of just used them for comic relief. Mm-hmm. But you've always pointed out, you said, if you were a parent, you would not want your kids in that class. I think this episode's super important to the Arthur canon because it's taking a stance on that. It's saying, no, Mr. Ratburn's style of teaching is actually way, way better. Look what happens when you get a Mrs. Sweetwater class. You become completely brain dead. You might suffer brain injury, as Brain was hypothesizing.
Sure.
I think it works on that level. It has that great moral. I also think it works well as an ensemble cast episode of all the kids kind of bouncing off each other with Buster's got some good lines in it. Arthur's got some good lines in it with a do I? And of course that Mr. Ratburn sequence of the history of the Ratburns is just so solid. I think it moves at a good clip. And I also like the part where they go through all the substitute teachers of the class.
Yeah, I thought that was
in the past. And Mr. Haney, mistaking what Mr. Ratburn is. I think all the little set pieces in this episode super worked for me as comedy bits, but I also think the overall plot was important. So I don't know, this episode super duper worked for me. I felt like they were just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticked, and it ended up being better than the sum of its parts.
Okay. I mean, I think that your summation is fairly correct. It just kind of on a personal level didn't do as much for me as it did for you, but no, I absolutely see what you're saying.
The one thing I'll agree with you didn't quite work is that Planet of the Apes reference. What were they thinking there?
But that kind of did work because it didn't.
The thing that really saves it is Buster waking up screaming. That part's funny, but it's what is this alternate universe? Does Mrs. Ratburn run the Earth? Did she blow it up?
Is she the maniac that blew it up?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. DW's Blankie and Arthur's substitute teacher trouble. As we come to the end of Arthur Season 1, we're going to have some big things happening for sure in the next few weeks. And of course, as life continues to move on, so will Elwood City Limits. So before we end off the episode, let me just quickly run through the ways which you can interact with us. First off, there is Facebook, facebook.com/Elwood City Limits. You can go over there. We post the new episodes there as well as our dankest of memes. And we also have some reviews over there. In fact, want to give a shout out to our latest 5-star review from Mr. Josh Sue. Josh, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. On Twitter, @ECL Podcast. Follow us over there. We're almost to 50 followers. Thank you very much to everybody who interacts with us over there. ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com. We are very thankful to the Tumblr community for helping to boost our signal for this podcast, and we hope that you'll continue to like and reblog over there. And you can interact with us a bit more directly. Send an email to the show, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Now, normally our prerogative is to read the emails on the show, but if you don't want it to be read on the show, just make sure you let me know, and we can just keep it between you and I. But elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com is totally fine. You can also send your questions in to our Tumblr as well.
And don't forget to fill out your March Madness Arthur character bracket by next week. And let us know how ice cream freezes. What's the deal with that? What's the temp?
At what temperature does ice cream solidify? Also, what is the average lifespan of a Galapagos turtle? And also, if you're in Aaron Moore's RTJ journalism class, thanks for listening. And hello to Aaron Moore, our journalism teacher. We were featured in her class this week. How about that?
How about that? Cash me outside.
And finally, you can find us by listening to us on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Elwood City Limits. And you can like and share over there, or you can subscribe over on iTunes, Elwood City Limits. And if you like, make sure to leave a 5-star review, or whatever star you think we deserve, and a written review as well. We really appreciate that. Okay, so coming up next week, I believe this is episode 28, and this has been one I've been waiting a long time for.
I feel like we're saying that every week now. We've just had banger after banger.
But see, last week it was like, I thought this, there's ones that are like, oh, I thought we were getting this earlier. This one is like, I knew this was later in the episode, in the season, but I've been waiting for it for a long time because I'm really looking forward to what I and you have to say about it. It's I'm a Poet and the Scare Your Pants Off Club.
This meeting of the Midnight Club has been adjourned.
The Midnight Society.
The Midnight Society, yes. How could I forget?
And so we're going to be getting into that. We're getting into a little bit more Fern. We're going to be introduced to Fern as a character, which is someone I'm also anxious to revisit. So
could she run away with the March Madness bracket? Who knows? We'll find out next week.
That's right. I will just let you know we're going to be having a little bit of a change to the schedule coming up after next week's episode. I'll let you know about all of that next week, appropriately. So, for Elwood City Limits, my name's Will Young. Lucas, take us out of here.
I am cute. I'm adorable.
That's right. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.